Delay, a little bit of preview of chaos. After about 2 hours, finally boarding at Larnaca, heading to Beirut, and really curious how this is going to go. I was last in Beirut 4 years ago. The flight from Cyprus to Beirut is definitely the shortest international flight I've ever been on. It's less than 25 minutes. I'm guessing maybe there are other shorter ones, but none that I've seen. And just like that, we're about to land in Beirut. Before that short little flight even landed, you can just feel the kind of nervous collective energy. It's one of those deals where just as the plane is touching down, everybody unleashes their seatbelts. And here ahead of me, and I walk pretty fast, everybody is hauling ass. You just kind of get that vibe that there's a lot of uncertainty and instability. I just got to Beirut in the Hamra district in West Beirut. I'm staying at the famous or infamous Mayflower Hotel. And there are multiple crises all going on here at once. There is the currency crisis. There is the issue of protesters or supposed protesters, according to the Prime Minister, burning banks. There is the city not having recovered from the port blast. There's a major electricity crisis going down. So the streets here, let me move over to the sidewalk. So the streets here are really dark, and the clerk at the hotel, who's super cool, he told me that by 2, the city's completely dark and everything is run on a generator, including the Mayflower Hotel. So it's just a really loud generator. Well, I changed some money at the Mayflower with the, again, incredibly helpful, awesome clerk. And he explained a lot of the currency situation to me, which is changing on a daily basis. And now I am out to get some food and just kind of observe the nightlife. One thing that feels odd is I actually left the hotel without my wallet, which would be an unthinkable thing on Cyprus, where even the smallest businesses are using the tap function on a debit card. And suddenly I am here in the Levant in an all-cash economy, but it's not Syria or Iraq, it's Lebanon. That's something I'm kind of adjusting to, so it's cash only. It's like an old Brooklyn dive bar. Twice. So the prices on the sandwich board are changeable. Sıfır, a lot of zeros on there. So just to try and gauge a little bit of what the street economy is, the falafel sandwiches I just had, which were fantastic, they were 80,000 liras a piece. I splurged and had 2 because I hadn't eaten most of the day, and that is basically $1 each. The lira is trading today at 82,000 to the dollar. The hotel gave me a rate of 78,000, sort of a convenience fee so they didn't give me the exact street rate. Walking from Hamra to downtown are posters of, this is Shireen Abu Akleh, who was killed in Jenin last year by a sniper while reporting for Al Jazeera. I don't know, these posters are faded, blasted by the sun, but still so vibrant. had to just stop and think about this. I had an Italian friend in 2002 who was killed in almost identical circumstances. So that was in the early days of my journalism career. So the story of Shireen here really just strikes a chord with me. So I couldn't get a taxi, so I'm now bombing my way through Beirut rush hour traffic to a story I want to look into. There were some banks that were burned the day before I arrived that I'd seen in Larnaca, and I want to go try and find what's left of them. I'm actually going about the same speed as traffic, if not faster. So I've had to slow down a bit. There aren't very many crosswalks here, and if there are, they're not heated. See, the rush hour traffic here is an absolute beast. Google Maps isn't always your friend in Beirut, as I just ran into some policemen in urban camo who wouldn't let me go the fastest route to where I'm trying to go. This happens all the time. So you have to find the literal meaning of the term workarounds. You actually have to work around checkpoints, roadblocks, and that sort of thing. As the police redirected me, I'm just pausing for a second while I'm rushing across the city to look at these amazing old apartment buildings that have not been fixed up at all. Well, my path has gotten really convoluted since those cops threw me off the trail, but I'm gonna make it. Still got plenty of daylight left. Beirut is poorer than I've ever seen it. Every day I'm seeing men and boys like this digging through the trash. It's become really common here. It's a visual indicator of how bad the lira crisis is, how much it's absolutely decimated the economy for the average Beiruti. You know, one thing that strikes me here is how bad the air quality's gotten. You know, people back home talk about going green and decarbonization, but Lebanon is the opposite of that. It's like recarbonization. Since the power grid has been out of order, everything here is run by fossil fuels, and you can tell in the air how bad it's gotten. No one I've met in my couple of weeks here in Lebanon is talking about a Tesla or a green economy. Everybody here, rich or poor, is just trying to get by. On my last day in Larnaca, there was breaking news on social media that protesters here in Beirut, in the Badaro neighborhood, were setting fire to banks. The protest movement is called the Depositors' Outcry, and they were protesting their frustration at limitations on withdrawals, branches being closed, and people simply couldn't take it anymore. So here, at this particular branch of BBAC, they had set tires alight in front and were kind of smashing up the place, and you can see that it's definitely closed now, if it wasn't then. And so I wanted to come here and document this because it took people going to these kinds of measures to make it onto the news wires. Most of the stories that I've seen, like just on Google News since I've been here, are from about a year ago, talking about the lira crisis and the power grid crisis. There's almost no new news coming out of Lebanon, even though a lot of Western journalists are based here. There are a lot of amazing local journalists here. No one's just really interested. This whole, you know, this whole region is kind of in the shade of Ukraine, I feel like, you know, and other things going on at home, domestic politics in the West. And yeah, this is still a big story. And just up the road here in Badaro is a branch of Franza Bank that was also torched that same day as the BBAC branch. And the Franza branch looks like it got it a bit worse. This one was have to put out by firefighters. And yeah, just more of the drama here in Beirut that's still ongoing, but it's kind of fallen out of the media spotlight. In contrast with the burned BBAC and Franza branches, across the road from Franza, there is a Bank Audi here where they've clearly fixed it up and repainted it. It looks like it's actually still functioning compared to the other two. So this one seems to have tried to save face, at least on some level. The other two branches look like they've given up. So here at this branch of Byblos Bank, it looks like somebody got mad enough to shoot up the place. That's serious customer rage right there. Something immediately obvious about Badaro is that it seems to be quite a wealthy neighborhood. It's got beautiful outdoor cafes, nice leafy back streets. There's no commotion over here. So you can kind of sense that the rage that people are feeling over the currency crisis and the inability to form a new government here in Beirut, it goes across different stratum of society. It's something that's really remarkable. Without being able to rely on central authority, many Beirutis and people all over Lebanon have to rely on gigantic diesel generators like the one behind me, where they pay a subscription fee the way people back home might subscribe to Spotify or Netflix or something like that. And they pay the subscription to guarantee that they will get a certain amount of diesel fuel, I believe it's per month, so that they can keep their businesses operating and apartments still lit if they can afford it. And I think if you can't afford your subscription, or if you fall short, then you're in the dark. So this is one of the issues going on here. I read that these had once been illegal, but the ministry, I think it's the Ministry of Energy, had basically legalized them because they didn't have a choice, because they weren't able to supply people with the basic services that a government is supposed to guarantee. One thing you notice walking, or in my case skateboarding, around Beirut is just the normalization of the relics, both social, political, and cultural, of the Civil War. You just see soldiers and military vehicles and just men in camouflage just on various corners. You're never quite sure why, but it seems like the city is always ready for some kind of armed conflict, and that alludes to the idea that the Civil War still lives with Beirutis. There's never been any kind of real, I guess, truth and reconciliation. And as if to precisely illustrate my point, here you have a state-of-the-art office building powered by a generator, and next to it, an absolutely decrepit building that's pocked with bullet holes, as if the Civil War ended yesterday. Beirut lives with these contrasts. It's a part of the fabric of the city. It's part of the city's identity, actually. It's so ingrained. Well, now that I'm done scoping out the burned banks, I'm gonna head into downtown just as it's getting dark to see if I can check out the local skate scene. I saw a YouTube short where there is a pretty sick looking plaza, and one of the kids who made the video actually messaged me and told me to come check it out. So I don't know if anyone will be there. I don't know what to expect. I don't think I can really do anything, but I'm gonna just check it out. Gonna do a very, very quick bit of urban exploring before I look for the skate plaza downtown. crawl through this fence. Ugh. Okay. All right, I squeezed through there. So there is this crazy unfinished building in the heart of downtown Beirut, and it's colloquially referred to as the Egg. And for a really long time, I've wondered what the hell this thing is, or was, or is someday supposed to be. And I actually found a story online of someone who investigated it, and apparently it was built by an architect in 1965, and it was meant to be the showpiece of a giant mall, and there were meant to be towers on either side, and for one reason or another it was never finished. And in its more modern history, it's played a role in both the Civil War. Apparently snipers would actually hide up there. I mean, it's a perfect hiding spot. And it's funny because it's just by the Sultan Al-Amin, the Muhammad Al-Amin Mosque. It looks, I said Sultan because it looks so Ottoman-like. But yeah, I just had to make a pit stop in here, and I'm glad I actually read about the strange history of this place. It's just a giant unfinished vanity project, but notably it's never been torn down either. It says a lot about this part of the world. It kind of reminds me of Nicosia, actually. Just something that's kind of left to rot, and it's never rectified nor healed. This Joker mural is very befitting of this place. And for me, it's kind of a funny tie-in because I actually did extra work and did some scenes with Joaquin Phoenix in the movie The Joker, directed by Todd Phillips. Although all 6 scenes that I shot were cut. Just there was one paparazzo clip that ended up on TMZ where you can see Joaquin and I in the shot. I'm just horrendously name dropping that. I noticed this as I popped in the site. Just gonna do a very, very quick art install while I'm here. I don't think anybody will particularly mind. Running out of daylight here. Downtown is about to get very, very dark. This is the last gasp of the daylight. Gotta get this finished and get out of here. Actually doesn't look too bad. Now, this is one of my prints from Iran, and here is another print from southeastern Turkey. Darkness is setting in here in the downtown, but some of the flat ground here is amazing. Makes for an incredibly smooth night cruise. This is the Muhammad Al-Amin Mosque that I was referencing. This was being built by the former Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri, who was assassinated in 2005 on the Corniche, and he didn't live long enough to see it built to its completion. It was meant to be a symbol of Beirut's rebirth after the 15-year civil war. Almost the moment the sun sets in Beirut, you can see this juxtaposition of the buildings that, you know, either can't afford power, the owner doesn't feel like paying for power, which are like this building here, which is completely dark, and this nouveau reconstructed building here that is completely bright, as if nothing at all is wrong. It's pretty wild. But you'll notice as I point up towards the square that none of the street lights are on, and none of the lights in this square are on. Well, this looks brighter than it is, but I found Starco Plaza in the dark. It's really good. And I found a local skater here. What's your name?
Anas.
Anas. So Anas has been skating with me here for a couple of minutes.
And it looks way brighter on the GoPro than it is in reality. This is what it really looks like. It's all grainy. But this spot looks incredible, and I might stop by here tomorrow before I catch my flight out to Oman. So I've talked about crossing the streets here being a little bit perilous, but it's much worse and dark. And here I am in the what would be the shadow of the old, behind me is the old Holiday Inn, which was an infamous hotel from the Lebanese Civil War. There was actually one of the very early phases of the war was called the Battle of the Hotels, and the Holiday Inn was sought after, and a lot of people, I think it's over 1,000 odd people were killed. And now it is a sort of off-limits military zone, but I'm just kind of using it to illustrate how dark the town is. I think, again, the GoPro is a bit deceptive. It's probably overcompensating. But you see, I don't know if you can see through the lens, this hulking building behind me. Just everything feels like this dystopian no man's land. I asked the young skateboarders at the Starco Plaza when was the last time they remember seeing light in the plaza and downtown in general, and they said about a year ago. They said until a new government is formed, nothing is going to be resolved. And here you can get a better look at the old Holiday Inn. Well, I don't know if you really can. And yeah, it's got sort of Baghdad style blast walls now. It's like, I guess it's an army encampment of one kind or another for the Jaish-e-Lebanon, the Lebanese army. And you can see how dark most of the buildings are around here. It's really striking. You know, it makes for an interesting walk, but I think if you lived here, this would get old really quickly. I think for Beirutis, the novelty wore off long ago of just having so much darkness in such a major, normally bustling city. Just bombing a completely dark hill. I mean, it's kind of exciting, but it's also kind of sketchy. Before angry depositors in Beirut started burning banks, they were robbing them. Here at the Federal Bank of Lebanon in Hamra last August, a disgruntled bank customer named Bassem al-Sheikh Hussein held bank employees hostage, actually, for a number of hours because he needed to pay his father's medical bills and he had no way to withdraw his money. It ended up in a standoff that resulted in a peaceful outcome. He was given a portion of his money and was eventually released. I think he was in jail for about 4 days. A group of protesters actually gathered outside the bank branch to show their support. That is how wide-ranging the anger is over the currency crisis here in Lebanon and these sort of very arbitrary bank restrictions about withdrawals and banks being, and this branch, for the last couple of weeks that I've been here, I've been having breakfast at this bakery every morning across the road, and I've never seen it open. I think it maybe closed after that standoff. But this is where it all started. I think this may have been the very first robbery. I swear it's faster to get around Beirut on a skateboard than it is in a car. The traffic here can be crushing. Behind me, way off in the distance, are the grain silos that blunted a large part of the blast from the August 4th, 2020 port explosion of the ammonium nitrate. The traffic here is extremely loud, so I might try and do an explainer somewhere else, but the port is there. That is where the explosion happened. There is an incredible scrap metal sculpture here in the port, which looks like it's a human figure holding a dove, which symbolizes peace. Very cool. I'm wondering if that's shrapnel from the explosion. I was doing some research on the port explosion. I remember some of the basics of it, in that it was a shipment of ammonium nitrate that was emanating from the port of Batumi in Georgia on its Black Sea coast. It went through the Bosphorus in 2013, and it was supposedly bound for a port in Mozambique. To where exactly in Mozambique, I didn't find anything specific on that. The ship was registered in Moldova, which I found pretty interesting, because Moldova only has really a minor port across the Black Sea from Batumi. It's like one thing I noted in reading up on the port explosion, some of the particular details about it, was that it's very notably before the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2014. The Moldovan flag ship had a Ukrainian crew and a Russian captain, and it's said that the Russian captain was a resident of Cyprus. I wonder if he was someone who took advantage of the golden passport scheme. And the explosion was said to be one of the biggest non-nuclear explosions in human history. And I'm trying to think of the only other ones I could think of that could possibly be bigger was the so-called Moab, the mother of all bombs, that was dropped by the United States military on the Islamic State faction in Afghanistan. And I don't know how to say it exactly, but the Tunguska incident, which was this giant explosion said to have happened in Siberia that flattened an entire forest. I think it was in 1911, but I'll have to check that. But I mean, visually, you know, as far as on video, I don't think anyone has quite seen anything like it. It was very, very dramatic. Just checking out the damage to this massive structure, you can get an inkling of just how powerful the blast was 2.5 years ago. Starco Plaza here in downtown Beirut is pretty amazing. It's got all different types of stone ground, and then it's got all these playful little differentials and ledges. There's gaps, manuals, and it's fun even just to simply ride around.